Hey everybody, it's Paul here. And last night I did something I had to do in a really long time. I actually slept 10 hours and it felt wonderful. And I feel very refreshed today. But another thing, it's not just sleeping long. I also had a dream last night. I had a dream about the vaccinations and about registering children and just registering yourself in general. You see, when children are born these days, they get a birth certificate, and that's kind of a way you register them into the system. And I had in the dream somewhere I was, and they said, is your child vaccinated, or is your child, if your child wants a shot or your child wants to be allowed in somewhere, they have to be registered, and just registering them. And it just made me think about just the registration of us in general and how they're trying to monitor us and control us and everything else. And we could use the word registration, we could use the word vaccination, whatever word you want to use. You know, it's. I'm not telling us we need to be or should be completely out of the government systems for us not to be tracked. There are some situations where it'll sure be much easier to be in the system than not be in the system and prove our point. For example, we technically don't need a driver's license to be driving legally, but it would be so much work to not get it and do it without it that the time we save by just getting one and having a driver's license may help us use that energy and time somewhere else. So we got to use great wisdom and prayer, of course, when we do these things. And the word wasn't the word of my dream wasn't register. The word of my dream was a license. Do not let your kids get a license. That's why I bring up license, because as adults we have driver's licenses, and but children have no license, a card that shows their information, and that card with that strip on the back. Children don't have credit cards. They don't have licenses. They don't walk around with cards. And the birth certificate wasn't good enough. They needed a government ID in a dream. The kids needed a government ID that was some form of photo ID. It's like a passport or something, to be allowed in somewhere to get something. And then I just put two and two together, and I thought about the vaccine and everything else. But should I say we shouldn't get a driver's license? Well, I always loved New York City because I didn't need to drive when I lived in New York City. That was really a pleasure not to have to deal with all that about having a car and everything else. Now, those of you that don't live in the city, you don't understand how that could be possible, but I never needed a car in New York City. But regardless, as the dream becomes more clear, I'll make more videos about it. But do not license your children. Do not give the government a license or get a government license. License is like a permission, and you're given, especially when you're signing those licenses, you're giving those governments particular positions. And these days, yes, people have driver's license to drive cars and so on, but there are also like marriage licenses. The Bible doesn't say that we need permission from the government to get married. You shouldn't need a marriage license to get married. You know, the car license, you don't need it, but it's good to take certain tests before you get a car license to make sure you know how you could drive, at least, so you're not crashing up everything on the street. So that's another story. But still, they track you through these things. But in a dream, it was like, just don't let your children get a license, and be careful. I know people that don't even let their children get birth certificates, let alone other licenses and things like that. So consider these things and think about these things, and because I predicted that they would be vaccinating or offering this vaccination. It would become mandatory. Eventually, we'll have a chip or a card or something that we won't be allowed to shop, or won't be allowed to do banking or getting gas or certain things without this chip, or so on. And I do believe that somehow licensing is going to tie into this, and it's becoming a government that really wants to watch over people and monitor things and have certain controls over people. So, I don't dream much like this, but I particularly license. Your child needs a license, I heard in the dream, and I was like, I'm not letting my children get any license for anything right now in my life. A license to, what do they say? They might say your children need a license to go to school. They say your children might need a license to come in the store with you or something. I don't know. But and I don't know what's involved in this license, but that was the dream I had. And we need to just go from history of how they monitor people. They monitor people with social security numbers. They monitor, but that's, if you don't use it, it's just a card with a number. If you don't use it, there's no strip on the back. Birth certificate is just a piece of paper that reports your birth. They report you're a real person. If you don't use it, it's one thing. But a license, like you look at your car license, it has a strip on the back, a metal strip that has information, and they could swipe it wherever you go. You have a choice not to carry your cell phone with you or carry it, and they monitor you with that. But your license is just one step closer to a chip that says we need permission. And I remember years ago I went to Asia, Southeast Asia, and I think it was in Malaysia, and they said if you got stopped on the street there and you didn't have your identification card, you'd get arrested. And I don't know if it's coming to that or not, but I talk a lot about suffering well versus suffering, and being arrested isn't necessarily the worst choice. Just got to trust our Creator in what He has planned for us and what He wants to get done. So I just wanted to, for those of you that out there that have children, don't let them get a license. It's be careful with that, and maybe this dream will come to more fruition here in the near future. To what point, but definitely don't let them get vaccinated. You don't get vaccinated. Definitely 100%. Stay away from the vaccination. I'm a health teacher, and I know that's not healthy. But the licensing in or whatever, be careful with that as well. All right, I just wanted to share that word with you. Have a blessed day, and shalom, shalom.